Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. And just to place a little bit of context to the session, last month was Wellness Month, as you would have all known. Many of you would have received our newsletter, and the focus was on wellness. And as part of that whole process, we've asked Joni to join us to look at wellness. So you have to kind of ask yourself why. And I think at this time of the year, as we kind of start hurtling towards the end of the year and really trying to complete the year on a high, we often just experience massive exhaustion and at the same time a lot of anticipation, which probably all wear us down and make us less effective rather than more effective. So this is a very good time to be focusing on rebooting, which we'll be doing today with Joni. The other reason we thought it was a really important emphasis for us as dispute resolvers, and again, the people who'll be on the webinar today are mediators and parties who've mediated with us before and our training clients. So a vast group of people from different backgrounds, but all in some way having to deal with conflict and manage it in our organizations or in our processes. And, one of the things we do when we train mediators is we really try and emphasize that the issues you're dealing with are not yours. The content is not yours. You are not, that you don't own the problems that people bring to the process. You only own the process and trying to assist them in reaching resolution or some form of resolution. But I think we'd be naive to think that that the issues we're dealing with, which are often really conflictual to the parties or to our employees or our teams, those issues don't stick. So there have to be ways of acknowledging that the content we deal with has an impact on us and de-energizes us and weighs us down. And we have to find ways of dealing with that in order to be able to really give our attention to the next mediation or facilitation or just difficult conversation that we need to be part of. So those are really the two objectives of today. Let's get through this year and let's get through it on a high. And let's think about how we take care not only of our clients and our parties, but how we take care of ourselves as interveners. And that's why I approached Joni. So Joni's an old friend. I've walked many, many, many kilometers with Joni and early mornings. And after every walk, I'm absolutely... I've received new insights, I've received more information, and I have a sort of a bounce in my step. And I think part of the reason for the bounce in the step is certainly not only because of the walking we're doing, but because of the information and the person that Joni is. So I'm really excited to introduce Joni Peddie. Joni is a coach, a keynote speaker of international standing, a leadership development expert, and someone who really has focused on this whole area of wellness. So without getting into too much of the detail of your background and CV journey, I'm going to hand over to you to take us through an hour and a quarter, I think, or an hour of just looking at how we take care of ourselves and how we bounce forward rather than kind of getting bogged down in the reality of our lives. Thanks, Joni.
Thank you, Marion. Yeah, it is Madvember, so it is that time of the year where we do feel de-energized, but most especially as mediators and people who look at conflict and people who look at resolving conflict, it must be very difficult for you. So I'm hoping that these techniques and tips and what I'm going to share with you today will be particularly useful. And I'm going to also invite you to have a bit of fun as well. Get some dopamine shooting to the brain. I was showing Marion and Craig that I have my second brain with me here as well. I've got a few little things on my desk that I want to share with you as well. And just to make it fun. So let's learn, let's grow, let's have some fun. I'm going to open my slides and forgive that messy desktop. It is rather messy. So Marion or Craig, will you just tell me if you see the bounce forward slide? Think, feel, act.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Craig. Okay. So I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to say to people when they're dealing with adversity, which is what this business is all about, is dealing with adversity, dealing with parties to come to think innovatively and solve conflicts and problems, is that any adversity, we need to bounce forward and learn from that. So my mission is actually to eradicate the words bounce back out of the English dictionary. Let's all know as humans, we only do three things. We think, we feel, and then we choose to act or not act. And of course, it's not that sequential. A feeling can lead to an action, can lead to, cognitive processing and thinking about the issue. So as humans, we feel, think, act, think, feel, and we need to know that having a growth mindset and bouncing forward after challenges or any adversity is what we need to do. So bouncing back is not an option. Right, so let's look at some of the how, but first about you. How are you feeling? So what's your energy like? And think about the last week or so. And put in the chat box. Craig is going to read out to me, if he doesn't mind, what numbers are in the chat box. I'm not going to toggle between the chat box and the screen. But if you've been feeling really low, 0, 1, 2, or 3. If you're feeling kind of, half, I suppose you would choose that dreaded 4 or 5. If you're feeling fantastic, 8, 9, or 10. So what numbers are we seeing, Craig, in the chat box? How are people currently feeling in the last week or 10 days, your energy levels, that is? I see
yeah, they're coming up now. So we got 5, 6, 5. Someone's got a 10, a 2,
Ooh.
4, 6, 3. So mostly below 5, and then a couple just over 5 and 6.
Okay.
1 from a person.
1, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Craig. Now, that's very much what I'm seeing locally. And I was just saying to Maria and Craig, I was in Abu Dhabi last week, and I had exactly the same 1s to 10, with obviously a lot around the 4, 5, 6. Now, from a neuroscience perspective, if we are going to be high performing, think innovatively, problem solve, critical thinking, gather data, ask the right provocative questions, we want to be on the higher side. So this session is all about how do we have enough energy in our system to get stuff done. And when you think about your own emotional responses and really dealing with that of people in the room with you, online, if you're doing any dispute resolution online, is that, that's going to drain you, as Marion said. So I want us to think about how can we boost our energy. And this is a daily script. So this is not, hey, Joni, I'll think about that in January next year. These are very, very simple things that you can do on a daily basis. And the reason I speak about this is I suffered burnout. It was about 28 years ago or so. And I know it's a slippery slope. So I grew up in KwaZulu-Natal, and I remembered these big slides actually in Durban and being terrified of them. And then, oh my goodness gracious, in my early 30s, I suffered burnout. And it was such a quick thing. It was like I was working very hard, and then suddenly I collapsed. And really that feeling of things are going okay, you're bouncing a lot of balls, lots of twists and turns and whatever you're doing. I like this little slippery slope slide here, but then you get to the water and it's kind of right under, but you don't pop back up. And that is a dreadful feeling. So I'm not proud to admit this, and I'm being vulnerable admitting it. And I just thought some of you and some people that I'm dealing with are really hanging on by their fingernails. So great expectations, output, tight deadlines, things are going quite well. And you're thinking, can I keep this pace? And then, everything just becomes like walking through treacle, like hard and grindy. And then you're just physically and mentally exhausted. I had one person tell me last week that actually they feel like their brain is bruised. And I know that feeling. I know that feeling of actually like, could a head massage help? Because I'm really sore, in the space between my ears. And then that horrible sense of collapse. And my burnout was a month in bed. It was really horrendous. And I can tell you that I'm a can-do person. I got up most mornings trying to get going and look at my walking shoes and my running shoes. But absolutely, I was had to stay in bed for a month. So let's not get to that stage, and let's look at what we can do daily to address this. So the performance curve is important for me. I think about, am I in that improvement zone where I'm looking at what I'm doing, improving the processes I'm using, having a look at how I'm re-energizing after, in my world, keynote speaking or facilitating workshops, for you, mediating and facilitating, and am I in that calm state? In fact, I was speaking to a client today during coaching around that brilliant book called The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler. And he speaks about the fact that the brain in the calm state is the only time that the brain emits and releases 5 neurochemicals simultaneously to think really laterally and innovatively. So The Art of the Impossible, Craig, if you want to just put it in the chat box, and Stephen Kotler is the author. It's really an interesting read because we really want to be in that healthy tension, calm state. And certainly the minute you get into that exhaustion line, your brain is not operating at full potential at all. So Madvember, let's have some fun. This is a screenshot of a Mentimeter. I didn't want to waste time doing a Mentimeter here tonight. But people are saying, hey, Joni, stressed, overwhelmed, feeling anxious, drinking more, and that would be alcohol, not good old water that rehydrates your brain. Feeling down, just feeling stuck, exhausted, can't focus, can't sleep. Let's have a look at some of those, and I'm sure you would relate to some of those, and how do we flip them on their head and make life quite different. So stress is not the enemy, but stress does make us feel like this. Wait for it. Yep, that will wake you up at the end of a Monday, the 6th of November. Or you could be looking and feeling like that. It's the most dreadful sound. And of course, it kind of fragments your brain totally. But it is something that we need to think differently about, is how do we manage that cortisol? How do we manage that stress? How do we manage life? So bouncing forward in the way we think, feel, and act is what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be doing that really saying, let's look at ourselves, because if you're going to re-energize yourself, and I love the way Marion introduced this in terms of the content's not yours, but you've got to own the process, and you've really got to come at it in a calm, mindful, intentional way when you're resolving conflict and being very present. You've got to have this reboot on a daily basis. How do you do this as an inside job? And then what are the tiny habits? So as a behavioral strategist, I am steeped in what can we integrate into our very busy lives. You don't want to leave this webinar with a to-do list of 10 things. You want to say, right, how do I just build this in? So how do I take some of those old habits that are maybe not serving me anymore and kind of get rid of those? And what behavior change can be really easily integrated? The guy that I follow is good old James Clear. I think he's absolutely fantastic. My favorite quote, I've put it up there in his book, is you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So I'm going to give you a few reboot systems to put in place so that it becomes really quite seamless for you. What are you doing? What's in place? And it's not a daily to-do list. You don't want that, and it just exacerbates that overwhelm quite dramatically. So these are the tiny habits, and I will be vulnerable and share what I do with my tiny habits and what has worked for me, because I just find that is the easiest way of sharing stories and sharing quite tangible things and getting away from the neuroscience and psychology and neurobiology behind all of this. Another guy that I follow, and I really like his work, and I have for many years. In fact, I was very fortunate to do his course, his Stanford course, I think about 11 or 12 years ago now. And that's Professor B.J. Fogg. He is, in my view, the greatest behavioral scientist in the world. He has now released his book called Tiny Habits. Very easy to follow him. And his methodology is fantastic. So get out your mobile phones if you like, because this is the recipe card I'm going to share. He says, look, we plant that little tiny pumpkin seed, we water it, and then look what materializes. One big, gorgeous, juicy, healthy pumpkin. And it's really just this recipe card. It's saying, after I do something, so my anchor moment, what will be the tiniest new habit, the tiniest new behavior be? And then how will I really kind of celebrate that, to anchor that in my brain? So this Tiny Habits recipe card is really lovely, and I will share with you at each of these reboot topics after each what I do to use triggers, anchor moments that will remind me to do that behavior. So it's not on my to-do list, it just happens. And then how I've scaled it back so that it's easy and it's consistent. I think the big thing we do very often with trying to reboot and be more energized is we start something new, it's a great new habit, and then life gets in the way and we're not consistent. So how can we do small things consistently? And then how do you celebrate with yourself? How do you actually create that joy, that sense of victory that sends additional dopamine to your brain? So we'll be following this Tiny Habit approach. His Tiny Habits book and his whole philosophy is that behavior change is the formula B equals M times A times T. So your behavior change equals motivation times ability times trigger. And the trigger is that anchor moment, then the tiny behavior, and then celebrate. So you're going to find your own trigger moments to integrate these new behaviors. So get out a pen and paper if you don't mind, and you may want to write reboot down your page, and Craig at the same time, if you don't mind, put the reboot card in the chat box. So I'm just going to get out a piece of paper here and be quite literal about this, because there's something in this for you. So if you wrote reboot down your page, be quite messy about it and start to think about what works for you. So just reboot on a piece of paper, and then as I go through each of these letters of the acronym, you're going to write down what is meaningful for you. I'm then going to give you my email address, and if you choose to email me and say, hey, Joni, I'm choosing one tiny habit, I then will email you a really nice little ebook on sleep. We'll get to sleep. Sleep is a big problem worldwide. Quantity of sleep and quality of sleep. So insufficient quantity. I'm going to give you tips around that. But we know from the World Health Organization that 67% of people are not getting adequate quantity and that deep restorative sleep. In fact, I'm just going to tilt my screen there. This whole vicious circle here is around sleep. I think it is the foundation of well-being. So I will spend quite a bit of time on that. On the screen right now, we have a brain, and you saw possibly as I was showing you the reboot, is the brain doing its thing. I'll just do it again because I love it. Is there the neurons, there the synapses, we've got these billions of cells, which is fantastic. And guess what? When I was in my 30s studying neurobiology, we did not know that we could grow new brain cells. We now know that we can grow 700 to 1,000 new brain cells a day. So you can get cleverer. And I love that. When that neuroscience came out, I was really, really happy, thinking, okay, I can get cleverer, because I thought, nursery school, I fell off the swing and knocked my head. And then primary school, I did other things. And then high school and then university, I drank too much. I lost a lot of brain cells. But actually, you can grow new brain cells as you get older. So that was fantastic neuroscience. And I often think about, when I talk about this, I think about my late husband's father, who this Thursday on the 9th of November will be 94 years old. Now, he's one of my favorite people on the planet. He lives in Hillcrest, Natal, and I'll be going down to see him next week. to celebrate his birthday. And the reason I tell you about him is he still teaches aqua aerobics. So at his retirement village, he teaches aqua aerobics, and he says, Joni, look, someone came to do aqua aerobics and they were in their 50s and they were on crutches and they battled to get into the pool. And he's like, these young people today, they really battle. There he is, 94, teaching them, getting them back to, throwing their crutches away and their walkers away. So it really, physically, we need to look at actually growing these new brain cells, but also mentally. So mentally, I can discuss anything happening in the world right now, from Armenia and Uzbekistan to obviously what's happening in Gaza. So it's really brilliant to have a great brain, and a great brain that continues to grow. And those synapses between the brain cells also are connecting thoughts. So we want to get cleverer as we get older. Here's the REBOOT acronym. Given that you're people that really work in complex environments, I decided to do REBOOT backwards this afternoon. So yes, it's time for a change. Neuroplasticity is all about time for a change. So we're going to start with the T at the bottom of your piece of paper that you've got hopefully on your desk with your pen, and we're going to work our way up to the R. So the T is time for fun. And it actually took me quite a while to really realize the importance of this in energizing myself. I love my work. I read leadership books and neuroscience books. It's all my yummy stuff. And I can tend towards workaholism. I'm sure you haven't guessed that with me admitting to burnout. So I really got to think about in my life, how am I going to inject fun on a daily basis? In what micro ways? So this is a very messy slide, but it really is a slide that demonstrates what we can do in the various dimensions in life. So I'm going to just walk you through it, and you'll think about really what triggers your interest and what you want to do differently. I do this sometimes in coaching with groups or individuals. Say, look, have a look at your wheel of life, and the epicenter, the bullseye, is 0, where you get 0 fulfillment. This is not about time, the time spent. This is fulfillment. So where are you getting fulfillment, and are you more than just work, life, and 1 or 2 hobbies? So physical environment, you could get a lot of fulfillment from gardening, and even if that's 20 minutes at the end of the day, hands in soil, watching the sunset. Maybe you're doing something in your career, a new challenge. So I'm doing a new accreditation at the moment, which is this EQ poster behind me. It's on team performance, and it's really quite exhilarating doing a new accreditation. Finance, are you looking at, what are you doing in terms of saving for a spoil? What are you doing differently? Today, I booked, this is really real lifetime stuff, for my husband and I to go to Bali in September next year to a conference. So that's fun. And actually straight after this, I'm going for lionotherapy. So there's the massage. What about hiking, walking, going to see a good movie, date night with your significant other, doing a yoga course, doing a wine tasting? What are the things you can do in your life that are exciting? And every day I look at what is the little thing that I can do, and it may just be inviting my neighbors over to sit on the grass and have a glass of wine at the end of the day for, an hour before dinner. So what are the tiny things you can do that really give you time for fun? And you'll see the tiny habits card there in the corner. It's really to think, after I've planned my day, I'm quite a big planner. What am I doing this week? What am I doing this day? And I replan every day. I'll have a look at, is it logical? Could I delegate? What should I do differently here? Blah, blah, blah. Should I bring someone else in? And then I think, okay, what is the fun time of today? So it's really, my planning happens the night before, but I relook on the morning of the day as well. And obviously in conflict mediation, a bit like me in facilitation, is that, there's certain non-negotiables that you can't shift, but there are other smaller times in the day that you can just think about, what is going to be the fun part of today? Make every day count. My kind of saying I say to my 2 daughters, who are now nearly actually 25 and 24, 26 and 24, is, have you squeezed the juice out of every day? So what, in terms of energizing yourself, what can you do differently today? So that is our time for fun. My advanced here is taking a little sabbatical. It's not moving on to advanced. Let's just do this differently. There we go. The neuroscience around fun I find interesting. So Sean Acorn, S-H-A-W-N, actually Ancor is a better way of saying his surname, wrote the book The Happiness Advantage. And he's got a terrific TED Talk. If you haven't watched that, listen to his TED Talk. And one of his stats is when you are happy, you are 33% more productive. And, what are the ways of making yourself happy? It could be planning something, really exciting this weekend or tonight or tomorrow. So that's one part of the research. The other part of the research that I really like in terms of the happiness advantage is not only is this facilitator more productive because she's happy, her brain's really firing on all cylinders, but emotions are contagious. So her happiness is having a contagion effect on those people around the table. And I'll get into the EQ part of this discussion, but let's not forget that people feel your emotions. I'm a big dog lover and I've got a beautiful spaniel. And I know from neuroscience that if I put a heart rate around my spaniel, put my spaniel in another room where she can't see me, she will feel my emotions, whether I'm sad or angry or irritated or feeling quite joyous and having a good laugh. So time for fun. You'll find ways to do it. Jot it down. And please, let's try and do something that's tiny every single day of the week. The O in reboot is for movement. Movement is medicine. In fact, besides sleep, I would love to have tattooed on everybody's wrist, movement 20 to 30 minutes per day is non-negotiable. So when you think about it, we've been around for 300 million years. Little has changed. So our brains haven't changed dramatically. Our bodies have changed dramatically, yes, in terms of getting maybe larger. But we are designed, this whole ecosystem, to walk 10 to 18 kilometers a day. That's what we used to do as hunter-gatherers, eating fruits and berries and maybe meat and fish, and then drinking a whole lot of water. And then we slept when it got dark, but we are not honoring that anymore. And on that note, I'll have a little sip of water. So we've got to think about actually what happens to our brain when we don't move enough. We don't produce this fertilizer for your brain, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This particular neurochemical is only produced when you raise your heart rate. It is only produced when you move vigorously. In fact, a little war story on this. When both my daughters were studying for matric, I used to try and encourage their mates to come to our house and put out really great food, healthy food, fruit and nuts and biltong and all sorts of great food so that they ate well for their brain. And then I'd have my mini trampoline and all sorts of things where they could, do microbursts of exercise. And both my daughters said, look, Mum, all good, but please, if you mention BDNF, we're out of here. Because it's one of my favorite understandings of the brain is that this fertilizer, a little bit like growing veggies, you put good fertilizer on and that growth and that, what you're going to reap is going to be far better. So think about the fact that you can grow more brain cells when you are exercising because of the BDNF. So getting into your body to revitalize every day, I certainly, and Marion knows this, we've got a running group in Park View, which is really fantastic, and we meet buddies, and there's people there 7 days a week. I don't run 7 days a week, but I do have other accountability buddies. So I went for a lovely walk with a friend today, and I have these stretch bands, and I thought I'd I have put on my desk. So I travel quite a lot, and this is my buddy in my suitcase, is my stretch band. And it might be that I'm in a different time zone and I do honor my sleep, so there might not be a lot of time for exercise in the morning, but I will do little crab walks with that little stretch band around my ankles across the hotel room. And let me tell you, your glutes will speak to you after 30 this way and then 30 that way. So getting back into our bodies is really, really important for re-energizing. I'm a strong believer in micro movements during the day as well. In fact, I've just today written an article about cordless skipping ropes. So I got really fascinated during COVID because my daughters set up like a kind of a mini gym in our very small garden, and they thought it was hilarious that I could not skip. So my eye, hand, foot coordination, I just have never got that right. So of course I Googled to see, is there a solution? And I found what is on the screen, but I now have imported my own called skipping ropes, and they've got bounce forward on them. They've got a little monitor that can look at how many rotations you do, and these sit on my desk. So this might be something that you want to do in the O for movement of Reboot. And I personally do this every single day, hand on heart, is I check my diary. I still have a paper diary, and I see where am I presenting, where am I facilitating, where am I meeting, and I look at that diary. I then take my mobile phone and I set for the different times in the day. And actually my husband says to me, "Are you crazy? There are always so many alarms on your phone." But I set my mobile to go off every 60 to 90 minutes when I'm stationary, when I'm behind my desk in my office. Obviously facilitating, it's different. But do a micro burst of activity. So it could be 10 squats next to your desk. It could be a minute skipping. It could be 10 jumping jacks, whatever. The unintended consequence, which is lovely, you'll have some water after that because you'll be thirsty. So you've got fresh oxygenated blood to your brain, and then you also are rehydrating your brain. There is an amazing amount of research on this. So even if I'm running a hard 10 kilometers at the start of the day, I will still do these micro bursts during the day. And when I've got out of that habit once or twice, it's amazing at the end of the day, I actually feel, that feeling where you're kind of dragging your fingernails kind of on the ground, opening your front door, kind of also dragging your feet into your home. You just feel terrible at the end of the day. And then other times where I've done this 3 or 4 or 5 times during the day where I feel fantastic at the end of the day. So do some self-awareness. Socrates said, knowing thyself is the beginning of wisdom. See if this works for you. It most certainly works for me. I have got a particular kind of trigger as well, is that the minute I walk into my home at night, my trigger is that when I touch the handle of the door, so I do have an office in the garden, but I might have been out for the day facilitating, so it could be the front door handle, is my trigger is when I walk through that front door, I do have the joy of having dogs that come to greet me and always happy to see me, but it is that I am also going to do a quick micro burst of activity. I want my family to get the best of me. So, very often we give a lot to our work and then we can hardly, mumble a sentence as we walk through our front doors at night. So this macro burst of activity during the day is a must do. Feel free to read my LinkedIn article about that today. And I saw someone's commented saying that she had never heard of cordless skipping ropes. Well, I think they're brilliant because they've got this weighted ball and you have the sensation of skipping, and there they sit on my desk. So that is the micro burst of activity, the O for movement, a bit of license there in the spelling. And then now the second O in Reboot, so hopefully you are still writing some ideas on your card, is around open your heart for EQ. And actually, when I think about conflict resolution and conflict resolution skills, emotional intelligence is probably your most needed skill. Your self-management, not getting, engrossed in that content, but to ask the right questions, to watch the non-verbals between people. EQ is a huge, huge topic. The screen behind me here shows 8 measurable EQ competencies. So I train EQ, we can measure the 8 competencies. And then, of course, over a period of time, we could remeasure them to see how you've developed them. It's a big, big topic. We also know that people with high EQ outperform people with high IQ 70% of the time. So the world is leading a lot more emotional intelligence right now, and especially with generative AI and the whole AI revolution, it's not going to be gathering that knowledge anymore. It's going to be, how do we interpret data? How do we manage conflict? How do we use our critical skills and critical thinking? And EQ is all about that. How do we, merge the thinking and the emotions to make good and the most optimal decisions? So this big topic, I'm going to kind of knuckle down to one or two things. This Daniel Goldman, and he really popularized EQ in the 70s and 80s. I love his quote: 80 to 90% of competencies that differentiate high performers are in this domain of emotional intelligence. So it has twice the power of IQ to predict our performance, and it's not about the specific role you have. The organization that I belong to, actually, this is their model, is 6 Seconds. They are a global organization. They're in 150 countries. They are a .org organization. They have a big, hairy, audacious goal, which is one of the reasons I started working with them about 9 years ago. They would like 1 billion people to be practicing the skills of emotional intelligence by the year 2039. This organization was started by a woman in the States, and she was a school teacher, and she really realized actually that EQ in schools was sorely missing. I now see in schools internationally and locally, I've got a grandson who's 6 years old, and he's doing social emotional learning in his grade, readiness grade R. So EQ at schools now is really widely discussed, which is fantastic. But I think sometimes EQ in the business place is not. And she will be 100 in the year 2039, this lady Annabelle. And I love the fact that she has this big, hairy, audacious goal. So there are many of us in 150 countries that are teaching and assessing emotional intelligence. This particular diagram that I'm going to show you is well researched. And we do have an assessment to assess this, but it's not necessary to take it. You may want to, again, just take a photograph of this particular screen. And I'm going to delve into a little bit of detail here. And I'm going to ask you to self-reflect. So I'm looking at the time. It's just after 10 to 5. So it's a good time to, me to be quiet for a minute or so. If we look at these 4 pillars of EQ, your effectiveness, how do you generate positive results? Your relationships, how do you build strong interpersonal connections, and also trust in your field of conflict resolution? What about your quality of life in terms of your own satisfaction, your true happiness, and your well-being? So the well-being of your body, the well-being of your brain. I read a stat today around the increase in Parkinson's and dementia and how it's radically increased. I can't remember actually the exact stat, it was early this morning, but it is dementia and Parkinson's, and we know all the cancers are just ramping up dramatically. So our well-being today is important. In fact, one of the sayings I like to use is, your habits today, the 6th of November, inform your biology tomorrow. And whether that's tomorrow is, 2025 or 2035, we really have to look at our habits today, because this whole ecosystem is changing on a daily basis. So this is the research that 6 Seconds have done worldwide, with millions and millions of data points over the last 25 years. So the x-axis is emotional intelligence. The y-axis are those 4 performance sets. So your well-being, your effectiveness, your quality of life, and your relationships. And it's highly correlated. So if you want to improve your EQ, you need to look at these 4 sets. And this is where you may want to go inward, is have a look at these 4 sets. So you're in the business of mediating and facilitating. We've also taken these 4 sets and we put 2 pulse points per quadrant. So they are very obvious, they don't need to be explained, except internationally we use the word community in relationships. So that's your sense of nuclear family and very best friends. So your community, and obviously you might be serving in a community, it could be in a church or it could be in a sports club or a networking club. So that's your close community. Then your ability to network. So your ability to, cross-reference, find people, see how you can sort things out. So relationships, community, your close network, and then your exterior network. Well-being is your managing of your health, how you eat, how you move, how you sleep, and then how you, I don't like the word balance in life because we never achieve balance, but how you really integrate those various dimensions that I showed you at the start under time for fun. Satisfaction and achievement and quality of life. Satisfaction could be that you're learning to play the piano and you feel really satisfied that this, even in your mid-50s, you're learning to play another musical instrument or your first musical instrument, and it's really satisfying. And there's a beautiful sense of achievement for starting something very different in your life. So satisfaction and achievement are not necessarily work related. Of course, they can be. Often mine is if I'm learning something new and I'm using it with my clients, I have a tremendous sense of satisfaction. I'm reading a really good book at the moment called The Life You Want to Live. And it's Arthur C. Brooks and Oprah co-wrote it. I hope I've got Arthur C. Brooks correct, his name correct. But he looks at happiness and satisfaction. And he says really happiness is looking at enjoyment in life, satisfaction, and your sense of purpose. And for me, it's really wrapped up into a lot of this quality of your life. And then how effective are you in making decisions and getting things done, and then your ability to influence. I was speaking to a car manufacturer today, and a guy who spent 25 years in the production, so being in the production area of the business, and now, wait for it, he's in the HR area, which is really quite a move, production to HR, but he's looking at facilities management and construction, and that falls under HR. And we were just speaking about that on the production line. If you waste more than 53 seconds, you have to account for that, and the decisions have to be made quickly. And if you waste half an hour on the production line, the board member has to know about it. So that decision-making is quite different to the decision-making that he's now finding being in facilities management in HR. So what are the kind of decisions you have to make? And then how does that fit into the context of your work? And then what is your ability like to influence? So I thought you might want to just spend a few seconds rating those 8 pulse points. And I'm going to keep quiet for a few seconds while you just maybe take a photograph of that, write it under the second O for reboot is open your heart and emotional intelligence, and just think, how well am I doing in these areas? And I literally meant a few seconds, and the few seconds are over. I look at this diagram quite often and really use it as a good, sometimes to journal, sometimes just to self-reflect, and what kinds of decisions am I making? And I think our lives and our quality of lives are really, it's not only those 4 quadrants, I know, but they're really good questions you can ask yourself around those 8 pulse points.
Emotions. How are you navigating your emotions through these turbulent times? Emotions are data, sending us messages from the brain and alerting us to important information. Some emotions drain our energy, while others give us an abundance of energy. Learning the skills of emotional intelligence is key to staying resilient and energized. Start by checking in with yourself during the day and notice how you are feeling. Name your emotions to tame them.
So I've done quite a lot of conflict resolution in teams, not to the standards that you guys would be doing. But I have found that really emotionally draining. And Marion mentioned that at the start. So I will, even during the day, if I'm doing a mediation in a team, I will go to the bathroom and I'll check in with myself, like, how am I feeling right now? And it's really miraculous in terms of brain science, is the minute you get to name it, you tame it. So it's the science is, if I put you in a functional MRI machine And I showed you a whole lot of different scenarios, and they could be around conflict, or they could be, dreaded car accidents, or even a beautiful wedding. Is the minute you name what you're seeing, this left ventricle part of your prefrontal cortex, this executive functioning of your brain, starts to calm down. You name it and you start to make sense of it. So naming our emotions it's a very important part of emotional intelligence. And actually on this model here, emotional literacy is one of the first things that we teach. So I will checkpoint during the day is I often use the trigger of going to the bathroom and then washing my hands to think, actually, how am I feeling? Am I feeling energized and excited? If I maybe taken on a project which I'm not feeling that competent for and I need some help with this, or, whatever. So it's quite nice, your bathroom breaks and washing your hands and looking in the mirror is, how am I feeling right now? And name it. I often speak aloud and people think I'm mad, and I simply don't care. Name it to tame it. This is a game changer for me, because the research shows, and Brené Brown did some recent research. She released that book, Atlas of the Heart, which is a magnificent book. I trained some of the Brené Brown Dare to Lead programs, which I love doing. And in that piece of research, in her Atlas of the Heart book, she researched 7,000 people. They were only in the States. And she asked them, can you name your emotions? And the average of the 7,000 people could name only 4 emotions: mad, glad, sad, and afraid. So one of the things she teaches in that beautiful book is actually how to name your emotions and how to use your emotions. There is a model called the Plutchik model, is what you're seeing on the screen right now, that I use to name my emotions. And during COVID, actually, I started playing with this when we were in lockdown. And just a little funny story around it is I printed this particular model and I put it under our plates at our dining room table. And my daughters, who were home, obviously from university and whatever, they gave me this big eye roll. Like, Mom, what we really detest is when you bring your work to the dining room table. Like, we are not delegates. And of course, my husband just laughed. So I didn't discuss the Plutchik model. But during the dinner, my eldest daughter said, I've met someone at university and I quite like him. But I actually just would never know. How do you ever know if you're falling in love? Started to laugh. And I said, well, you may, Kayla, want to look at the Plutchik model. Have a look at that beautiful joy petal, the yellow, and the trust petal. And the intersect of those two emotions, joy and trust, is love. Anyway, I noticed that the Plutchik model was taken away from the dining table and taken to her bedroom, which I was very happy about. But that's a funny little war story to say that actually this beautiful model is 32 different emotions. And it's quite nice to just self-calibrate. How am I feeling? And one of the EQ systems we teach is VET. So validate how you're feeling, and all emotions are welcome. It's a bit like saying, all your family and good friends are welcome at your front door. You're never going to, say to someone, don't come in. So you want to know when you're in a state of anger or annoyance or disgust or grief or sadness. So validate that emotion is happening right now. You've got to explore it. You've got to navigate it. And then you've got to know how to transform it. So this is another offer for you. Should you email me and say, Joni, I really like that Plutchik model. Could you please send me the interactive model? I will do that. So the interactive model is something that 6 Seconds has designed, and it is fantastic. So you could print this off the internet, but what 6 Seconds have done is they've made it clickable. So you can go into fear, click on that, and say, how do I transform fear to apprehension? And how do I reduce that intensity? And there'll be a video, there'll be a quote, there'll be an article. So they've made it a really fantastic way of really getting to understand 32 emotions and getting to name it, tame it, and transform it. So email me if you would like that interactive version. Otherwise, actually, if you went to the 6seconds.org website, you would find it there. It's not so easy to find though. So that was emotional intelligence microwave with a few little ways of dealing with your emotions on a daily basis. Now let's look at breathe. This is a pretty short part of the reboot acronym. This 4-7-8 breathing I use probably 8, 9, 10, 12 times a day. And it's very simple. So I'll give you a scenario even this afternoon at about 2:30. I thought, okay, I've got certain things happening later today, but also tomorrow. What do I want to prioritize doing next? And I will literally stand up, look at my diary, but as I'm standing looking at my diary, I breathe in for 4 counts, hold my breath for 7 counts, and breathe out audibly through my mouth for 8 counts. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. It actually calms the vagus nerve, and you've got 2 vagus nerves that really trigger your parasympathetic system, your calming system in your body. It is brilliant. I use it at night if I'm battling to fall asleep, or if I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I use it if I'm triggered in a meeting and someone said something that's not truthful, or they are denigrating someone else. I would imagine in conflict resolution, you might use this a lot. So 4-7-8 breathing I use a lot. And then I also use non-sleep deep rest. So I learned this from Professor Andrew Huberman, who's the ophthalmologist at Stanford. And actually this guy, the Google and Alphabet CEO, Sundar Pichai, speaks to all of his employees about it. And my godson works in Dublin in Ireland. And I said to him, when you're in meetings with Sundar Pichai, does he speak about NSDR? And he said, yes. I thought, great. It's, you've got to check what you read these days. So what is non-sleep deep rest? It's little microwave ways of breathing during the day. So that icon on the left called Reverie is a great app. I actually only use the free version of it, and there are little 1-minute meditations. So if you've just come out of a conflict resolution meeting and you're about to go and do something else, or you've got to do a report, but your brain is quite frazzled, you may want to just sit at your desk or stand, would be probably better, and do this 1-minute meditation. It is really brilliant. A lot of my ADHD CEOs love this meditation because they can't do anything longer than 1 minute. Yoga Nidra, if you don't know about that, just Google it. It's a lovely way of resting your brain and not having to move. I do spend a lot of time on the grass, especially when I've been traveling. The first thing I do when I get home is shoes off, ground myself on grass, and I do 4-7-8 breathing. I'm also very diligent about seeing sunrise if I can, and also sunset, to just get my brain circadian rhythm going. So different forms of breathing and different quick ways of doing all of this. The eat section is also very quick. I see I made a spelling mistake there. Goodness gracious, we'll flash over that. I'll really look at the brain and think, this is a marvelous organ between our ears. It's 2% of our body mass, but it consumes 20% of our energy. And we can't store energy in the brain. So what are we feeding our brains? And I'm very particular about this. I'm very particular in my family. I'm the no sugar, no fun mum. I don't have sugar in the house in terms of any rubbish food. Really, it is addictive. It's as addictive as cocaine. The person that I have found that has really popularized lowering the glucose curve, and her science is brilliant, is Jessie Inchawaspi. She wrote this great book, which I have read, The Glucose Revolution. There is a follow-up book that I haven't read, and I forget the name. But if I had to give you the 3 takeouts of this book in terms of stopping your sugar cravings and getting your energy back, is before your main meal at night, I don't seem to do it at lunchtime, have a tablespoon of vinegar. It lowers your glucose curve, and the glucose spikes, increase inflammation in the body, lead to diabetes, etc., etc. So a tablespoon of vinegar. When I started this, I have to inject a bit of fun here with my husband. He says this is a no-go. I can do a lot in the family home, but vinegar before his main meal, he's not doing. So I said to him, how about if I made it fun and I put it in a tequila little shot glass? So I got him doing it for a while, but then I must say, he's not a fan. But a tablespoon of vinegar if you want to lose some weight. Start your meal with the salad, and then you go on to your protein, your carbs, etc., and then move after your meal. So now that I've imported these cordless skipping ropes, of course the family are going, no, Mom, we are not skipping after supper. Well, I'm skipping from 1 minute after supper these days. So those are just 3 beautiful tips from her. Follow her on Instagram. She's got amazing tips, amazing science. And, it's the small things. I mean, just look there. If you've got oats and you're having that for breakfast, what about adding just some berries and some nuts and chia seeds and that kind of thing to lower that glucose spike? It's really brilliant stuff. Now we're getting on to the last 20 minutes of our webinar, and this is all about sleep and deep restorative sleep. So when last did you bounce out of bed? I mean, that feeling of waking up without an alarm, that feeling of waking up with a fresh brain and feeling fantastic for the day, that is how we should be waking up. So how many hours are you sleeping? So Craig, if you don't mind, tell me what's in the chat box. Let's see, on average, Monday to Sunday, how many hours are you sleeping? Or maybe I should, rather than Monday to Sunday, because people often say, Joni, I sleep longer on the weekends. Monday night to Thursday night, how many hours are you sleeping? Or Sunday night to Thursday night? Craig, what are we seeing in the chat box?
Some are coming in now, so we've got 7.
Good.
7.5, 6, 4 to 5, 6. Yeah. Another one for 67, around 7. So it seems about 7 hours or so is the average.
Okay. 7, Craig, is fantastic.
Yeah.
4 to 5, that person, they need to get hold of me, and I need to coach you to shift some behaviors, because the sleep science now is just robust. 7 hours is the minimum, not 6 to 7, not I'm so special, Joni, I've always slept 6 and I wake up feeling fine and I don't get the wildebeest nodding head during the day. No, 7 hours is what your brain needs with your head lala on the pillow sleeping in order to wash out the toxin accumulation of the day. There's a toxin that we accumulate during the day called beta amyloid, and it's like plaque between your teeth. It's plaque between your brain neurons. So, the habits today inform your biology tomorrow. So you may be feeling fine now, but believe you me, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, etc. So sleep, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, inextricably linked. It is absolutely something that you have got to edge up to sleeping those 7 hours per night. So if you're only sleeping 4 to 5, you're never going to get to 7 in the next week or so. Just try and every night edge up, for another 15 minutes, another half an hour. And those of you sleeping 6 to 7, again, 7 is the golden number. How can you get to those 7 hours of sleep? So I'm going to give you 6 practical tips and what you can be doing differently. We know that, many people battle with sleep. It's a worldwide problem. And in most developed countries, we know 7 out of 10 people are not getting that adequate sleep. So I'll share these tips with you, and then I'd love to answer any questions as we go. So the other reason for doing Reboot Backwards is to end on this very important topic and see, what you want to know and how you can perhaps shift some behaviors here. So the first thing is something that's counterintuitive, is not to have your first cup of coffee as you wake up. So what the brain science shows is that if you delay that first cup of coffee by about 2 hours, and actually I should say that is tea, coffee, and green tea, so any caffeine by 2 hours, your adenosine buildup, forgive me for getting geeky on the brain here, but your adenosine buildup is what makes you drowsy. you will probably not get that drowsy afternoon wildebeestnod. So try it. Try having whatever, herbal tea, having a rooibos, something as you wake up. Let's also remember from a brain science perspective is that your brain, when you go to sleep at night, is this beautiful plump grape. But at night, because of the flushing out of the beta amyloid, that toxin, which is a natural, beautiful process that the brain does, the brain is very busy at night, is that your brain goes from this plump grape to a shriveled raisin. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but the brain does lose a bit of volume at night. So the worst thing you can do is, have caffeine, which dehydrates the brain as you wake up. So I saw some sad faces popping up as icons on the webinar. Is just try having some herbal tea or some, in summer now it's jolly easy in South Africa, it's so beautifully warm, some just water and lemon and ginger, something to rehydrate the brain. So see if you can do that and then delay that first cup of coffee.
Joni, can I interrupt you before you go to the next point? There has been a question in the chat asking, can one sleep too much? And what is too much sleep?
Listen. Very good question. Is you really don't want to sleep more than 9 hours. There is, that sedentary kind of body being on a bed, on a couch for too long. All your organs, your whole ecosystem needs movement. We are designed to move, as you saw, 12 to 18 kilometers. So what is too much? Too much is over 9 hours. And when I am doing some sleep coaching, is that if people are speaking about this excessive sleep, then it could be a depression issue or mood issue, and we need to work through some of that. So yeah, if you're sleeping longer than 9 hours, it's problematic. If you've got teenagers who are sleeping longer hours, that is kind of, the teenagers do seem to sleep longer. But, maybe they're also going to sleep late, maybe they're on their mobiles, got blue light into their eyes, which I'm still going to speak about. But on average, adults need to sleep no longer than 9 hours. So anything over that's too much. Any other questions, Marion, so far?
No, that's it. That's the only one so far. Okay. Please feel free to put them in the chat if you do have questions, and I'll interrupt Joni as I just have.
Great. Okay, so the second one that's most unpopular is your last cup of tea or coffee or green tea 8 hours before bed. So I can tell you that this is I have very few rules in my life. I quite like agility and I quite like, spontaneity and doing different things. So I don't like to live by rules, but this is a rule. And the half-life of caffeine in your bloodstream is about 8 hours, which means that if you have a cup of coffee at 5 p.m., it's going to be lasting in your blood, past midnight. So you really, really want to look at what time are you going to sleep and then just calculate those 8 hours back. People who say, but Joni, you know what? I have a cup of coffee after dinner. I love that. And I put my head on my pillow, poof, and out I go. Well, that may be the case, but what I wasn't going to go into in this session is the 4 stages of sleep and the sleep science. You may not be getting that deep stage 4 sleep if you've got too much caffeine in your system. What does that mean in colloquial terms? It means is that the brain is not flushing out the beta amyloid, and you're not waking up, with great critical skills, great thinking ability, the ability to problem solve and innovate. So this is a big rule in my life. I go to sleep very early because I wake up really early. So I go to sleep 9:30 at night, and I look at my watch. If it's 1:30, I don't have that coffee. I might have a decaf, and I know there is caffeine in decaf coffee, but I certainly have no caffeine after 1 o'clock every day. Even if it's a weekend and I might go to bed later, it's kind of 1 o'clock, no more coffee. So it's not a popular one, but it's a one that helps with deep sleep. I mean, my family tease me. We haven't yet had those beautiful middle of the night thunderstorms, which I love, but there can be a really serious thunderstorm with, thunder and lightning, etc., but the noisy thunder, and I don't wake up. And in the mornings, my children, my husband go, Mom, you must be on drugs, because seriously, did you not wake up at 2 a.m.? Nope, I did not wake up. So that deep, deep restorative sleep is something that I've mastered probably in the last 6 years since I've been studying sleep science. Alcohol to celebrate, not to obliterate. I'm certainly not against alcohol. That's my beyond time journey, 10 minutes to go. So 1 or 2 glasses of wine, 1 or 2 whiskeys or beers, but not to obliterate unless it's World Cup night when you're winning, and we did, which was really exciting 2 Saturdays ago. I would really say there should be a lot of celebrating there. So, sleep does interfere with the stage 4 sleep. Alcohol does interfere. So 1 glass of wine can reduce that stage 4 sleep by about 14%, 2 glasses, 39%. So it just escalates up exponentially. It's not a good idea if you want to get good quality sleep to be having more than a glass of wine or a glass of whatever you choose per night. Magnesium is a big story. I take various types of magnesium. There are actually 8 types of magnesium. Magnesium is responsible for about 600 different processes in your body. And we're not getting a lot of magnesium from the foods that we eat. So that is one thing that I do take every single night is magnesium. And I don't, even if I'm flying across time zones to America, I don't take anything else except that magnesium. Sometimes I might have melatonin, 6 milligrams of melatonin if I'm really battling across a time zone. But I don't seem to battle because I really I'm quite consistent with my magnesium. I've put my email address there, and Craig, you might want to put it into the chat in case you want the Plutchik wheel or the sleep book that I'm going to offer you. But also there's good magnesium and there's magnesium that's not so good. So I can just refer you to magnesium that's got, all the right ingredients so that you can take 1 bottle of magnesium that's got all the 8 variations. This is something that I also do every night, and I also have used this for years, and I've never decided to upgrade to the paid version. I use the free version, and this is what I do, is I put my sleep cycle mode on. I put my phone onto airplane mode because the electrical magnetic fields, that's brain cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer. We all sleep with these dreaded things next to our beds. They must be on airplane mode. But I just, awareness. I love to see, how I slept the night before. So it monitors your breathing. It's not accurate. It's about 70% accurate. There's Aura rings and lots of other things that you can do for accuracy. But this is just a self-awareness thing. I just look at it the next morning. You can see there that I go to sleep very quickly, down stage 1, 2, 3, 4, come up for rapid eye movement where you consolidate your memories and your learning from the day, and then up and down, and that's how sleep works. So I get into bed and I put that on, and then I use that as my alarm for the next day. So it's just a lovely way of being more self-aware around the power of sleep and sleep being your superpower. This is not a popular tip, but getting off your phone, getting away from your TV, and certainly off your computer 60 to 90 minutes before bed. It is huge. So this blue light into your brain affects the production of melatonin, which gives you that deep sleep and gets you into the sleep mode. We have, in our home, we turn the lights down. And yes, there are times where we watch, and I've actually got a pair here, we watch a Netflix series, or I don't watch news at night. I really don't want to go to sleep thinking about the dreadful things that are happening around the world. But if we are watching a Netflix series, I put blue blockers on. And these are really easily available now. You can get them everywhere. In fact, normally, if I'm presenting at this time of night, I put them on as well. But I'm not on my mobile, certainly not at all. I'm reading a good novel when I go to sleep, and I haven't been watching TV for about an hour before bed. It is absolutely a game changer. I hope some of you get into the realm of this good habit. This is the online sleep self-paced course that 2 of us co-designed, and it's got quite a lot of cognitive behavior therapy in it for insomniacs. So it's a very simple course. It's 4 modules, but if you wanted to self-pace your way through getting better sleep, that is really the cornerstone of well-being. You might want to have a look at that. So that is really what I wanted to share in terms of reboot. I do have about 5 minutes left. I also wanted to say to you that that top left-hand little icon of that little child with the dollar notes, it's cuddling, how cute is that, is a little book that I wrote for a financial magazine, and it's called Budget Your Sleep Like You Budget Your Money. And it's really very simple. It's got a lot of what I've spoken about in there. But I would love people to, if you want that, to email me and I'll send it to you, and really to have some good discussions around your dinner table with your significant others. Sleep is absolutely imperative. We're often trading in our sleep for, our business or whatever else we're wanting to do. In fact, there's also research that some people, their health would be far better if they slept that extra hour than went to cycle or run for that hour. So sleep is that important. It is imperative for well-being, and imperative in this age of where we need critical thinking and conflict resolution and innovative problem solving as well. So let me know if you would like that. And here's a bit of a trade for you as a behaviorist. I would love you, if you want that sleep book, to say, hey, Joni, here's one tiny habit that I'm changing out of the reboot acronym. And just so that I kind of get a sense of really what was most appealing for you and what you can integrate into your life. The 2 screenshots below that show a resilience up profile that we've developed, looking at your sense of purpose, your body, your emotions, and your mind. And then you can see on the right-hand side those 8 pulse points that I asked you to have a look at. So you might want to take that. But as I said, it's even worthwhile just thinking through those 8 pulse points as a way of journaling, of self-understanding, where am I, overspending my time and my energy, and where could I maybe, relook what I'm doing on a daily basis. So those are on offer as well. I'm going to come off screen share and also be looking in the chat box and seeing if there's anything else that people want to know. Anything else that has been put in the chat box, Marion?
No, I think we covered. I haven't seen any other questions or comments in the chat box. So I think we covered, Joni, on that score. Okay. And we are coming to past, which is our cutoff time. So that's like really good. Clearly, if you do all these tiny habits, you also are very punctual, because it's a clear indication for today. Seems like there's one that's just come up. Just comments about how insightful it's been, really useful. Thank you very much, Joni. So a couple of comments like that, which you could take a look at later. Right. Anything that you'd like to end off on, Joni, or can I take over it?
Say that burnout is up dramatically worldwide. Something that pains my heart is that suicide is up 60%. The use of antidepressants is up 400%. So there's a lot going wrong. And I just really wish that we would take these simple techniques, this back to basics, more seriously in terms of self-managing, and really being also aware of the people around you that are in pain or in need, and lean in to helping them shift some tiny habits, be their accountability partner. It's the lack of well-being and this dramatic increase in burnout and suicide is really hugely distressing.
Thanks for that, Joni, and thanks so much for the last hour and a quarter. I mean, I think those tips are extremely practical, and I'd like to challenge everyone to send Joni a tiny tip that we've or a tiny habit that we've decided to kind of sign up for during the last hour and a quarter, and and getting back from her that book and a whole lot of additional information. I mean, I think she'll probably send you a voucher on the magnesium too, or the likes. There's so much generosity in the way that she shares this information and really works towards creating healthier colleagues and companions. So thanks for your time, Joni. Thank you, everyone who joined us. I think just a little bit of a plug. We're looking at, I think the next mediator development program, we're looking at creating psychologically safe spaces for our parties. So that's kind of ties in to what we've been speaking about today. So look out for that. That'll come out quickly within the next few, I think it's due later on this month. So we'll be advertising that soon. And we look forward to certainly seeing all the mediators in that session and anyone else who'd like to join us. So thanks again, Joni, much appreciated. And thanks, colleagues, for joining us.
Excellent. Have a good rest of your week, everybody. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.